Guess what I'm doing? Not my homework.
How's it going, guys, and welcome to Gaming Evolved. I'm Shifty Cow, and in today's video we're going to be talking about some tips and tricks that I found really helpful when playing CSGO. So before we get into it, if you guys do go on to enjoy the video and you want to see some more CSGO on this channel, be sure to smack that like button down below. Let's try and get this video to 25 likes, but anyways, let's hop right into it. Now, I want to start off by saying that if you're already like an MLG Pro Global Elite Beast, chances are these tips aren't going to help you out that much, and it's more aimed towards people who are newer to the game, or those people who have a little bit of FPS experience in other games, and really are just having a tough time kind of transitioning into Counter-Strike. So, with that out of the way, the first tip that I have for you guys that is probably the most important thing coming from other first-person games that I really don't notice, is definitely the crosshair placement. If you have your crosshair just aiming up at the sky or down at the ground and you're just running around and you're not really paying attention to where you're putting your aimer, that can make a huge difference when you manage to stumble upon someone. So in this clip right here, this is a prime example of crosshair placement. If I'm running around and I'm keeping my aimer perfectly at headshot level, as soon as I see someone, I can just mow them down incredibly quickly, solely because it's pretty much a one-shot headshot, and that's kind of where the skill gap comes in. So if you're able to master this tactic, you are going to be incredibly successful at Counter-Strike. Now, a lot of this comes with a little bit of practice, obviously, and you have to kind of learn where the head level is, the perfect area, along with being able to control recoil. So that's my number one tip for you guys, and overall that has probably helped me the most, just being very conscious about where my crosshair is, where I'm aiming, and trying to keep it at headshot level. So that's probably the best tip I can give you guys if you're coming from other FPS games. And then of course, if you are new to FPS games in general, Counter-Strike's kind of a tough one to start because there is such a skill gap, but it can also be kind of helpful because you're not going to have any bad habits that have carried over from other games. So let's just move on to the second tip, and that is the damage indicator. Now, this was something that I really struggled with coming from something like Battlefield, because in a lot of different first-person shooter games, if you get shot, say in the back, you have like a little damage marker, which they have in Counter-Strike. It's a little red like semicircle, and in a lot of other first-person shooter games like Battlefield or COD or whatever you're playing, it gets a kind of bloody screen effect, and it's very obvious when you're damaged, and you can actually tell like how much you're damaged based on how bloody your screen is, or how black and white it is, or just really anything like that. But in Counter-Strike, it doesn't seem like they have that. You have perfect vision every single time. So I was having a very tough time when I would go into a gunfight, shoot someone up, and I would have like 5% health left. I really wouldn't pay attention because I'm like, oh, I got shot, but I'm fine now because I can see well. And so that's kind of a bad habit that people can carry over. So you really just need to be aware of what your health bar's at. If you're at really low, then kind of be aware that you're going to need to be very tactical in the next gunfight. You can't just run in there willy-nilly and try and headshot them. So that's something that I really was not focused on, and it's kind of just something to keep in mind when you're playing CSGO. Now, my final tip for you guys that's specifically for Counter-Strike Go is to be able to manage recoil. So in a lot of different games, they handle recoil very differently, and in Counter-Strike, it's probably one of the hardest to learn in terms of where the recoil is going, where your bullets are flying, and there's a couple of different ways to do it. So first of all, what I did is I just hopped into a random multiplayer round, and then during the warm-up period, which is like 5 or 10 seconds, pick the gun you want and just spray at a wall. Be able to try and control it and get that muscle memory built where you're able to control it and figure out exactly where your bullets are going to land. So this is something that just kind of comes with a lot of practice, or you can go and download a community map, because there's really just a community map for everything trying to get better at CSGO, and they have a bunch of different spread locators and just all these different things that people have done together. But that's just kind of how I learned, was just spraying on a wall. I really didn't feel like downloading anything, so that's a really nice way to do it. Or just hop right into Counter-Strike. Like, there's TDM, you can just figure out where your bullets are. It's kind of hard to see where your bullets are landing, but if they're up against a wall or if they have objects behind them, you can see where the bullet holes are landing, and you can kind of just adjust accordingly. So that's probably one of the biggest tips that I have for you guys, is just learn how to control recoil, because chances are when you're first starting off, you're not going to be quite as accurate. Crosshair placement is going to be kind of challenging for you, and this is just a really good one, because if you're spraying down range, you really need to control recoil. So those are some of the biggest tips that I've really found helpful when trying to get better at CSGO, and keep in mind this isn't for like competitive or anything. This is just for, you know, casual TDM and just trying to get better in terms of gunfighting. These are some really good tips, but if you are new to FPS games in general, you haven't really gotten that much experience with other games, or you consistently go negative or things like that, these are a couple basic tips that some people may know, but it's just kind of a good thing to review. First of all, if your accuracy isn't on point, First thing I would do is to make sure that you're at a good DPI or a sensitivity, and you want to make sure this is as low as you can go while still being able to turn around very quickly. And a lot of people are under the opposite mindset, where you're trying to go as high as you can go while still being able to be accurate, and that's more of something that I would think of when using a controller. Like if you're on Xbox, go as high as you can so that way you can turn very quickly because it's got a slower movement speed, but on mouse and keyboard it's the complete opposite, go as low as you can go while still being able to turn around quickly. So it's kind of vice versa, a lot of people get that messed up, but that's a really good tip. And also, if your accuracy is still kind of struggling, download a couple of community maps, they have a ton of them just to test out your aim, and in no time your aim will improve. So moving on to the next thing is how you're being observant and what you're doing with the information you're seeing. So be sure to be always glancing at your minimap, checking for enemies or dead teammates or things like that. And also, audio cues are very, very important. A lot of people tend to just kind of throw them away, and they don't really think about footsteps or people like putting on suppressors or things like that, because just about everything in this game makes some kind of noise. So if you can hear that, you can get a lot more information, and if the enemy isn't, chances are you're going to win that firefight. So those are just a couple of basic tips on CSGO. Hopefully you guys did find them informative, and keep in mind, I am a noob still. These are just kind of some basic tips that I found helpful, so if you're pro at this, they're probably just dog piss. But if you did enjoy the video or find it helpful, be sure to smack that like button down below, and if you'd like to subscribe. But until next time guys, stay buttery.